Chapter 10, Introduction to the Human Body, Part 6. Human body cavities. The human body, like that of many other multicellular organisms, is divided into a number of body cavities. A body cavity is a fluid-filled space inside the body that holds and protects internal organs. Human body cavities are separated by membranes and other structures. The two largest human body cavities are the ventral cavity and the dorsal cavity. Those are pretty big divisions, so they are subdivided into smaller cavities. The ventral cavity. The ventral cavity is at the anterior or front of the trunk. It contains the lungs, heart, stomach, intestines, and reproductive organs. In the figure below, you can see some of the organs of the ventral cavity. This cavity allows for considerable changes in the size and shape of the organs within it as they perform their functions. For example, organs such as the lungs, stomach, or uterus can expand or contract without distorting other tissues or disrupting the activity of nearby organs. Subdivisions of the ventral cavity. The ventral cavity is subdivided into the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. The thoracic cavity fills the chest and is subdivided into two pleural cavities and the pericardial cavity. The pleural cavities hold the lungs and the pericardial cavity holds the heart. The abdominal pelvic cavity fills the lower half of the trunk and is subdivided into the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity holds digestive organs and the kidneys, and the pelvic cavity holds reproductive organs and organs of excretion. Subdivisions of the dorsal cavity. The dorsal cavity is at the posterior or back of the body. The dorsal cavity is subdivided into the cranial and spinal cavities. I like to think of the dorsal fin when I think of the dorsal cavity for locating it. The cranial cavity fills most of the upper part of the skull and contains the brain. The spinal cavity is a very long, narrow cavity inside the vertebral column. It runs the length of the trunk and contains the spinal cord. The brain and spinal cord are protected by the bones of the skull and the vertebrae of the spine. They are further protected by the meninges, a three-layer membrane that encloses the brain and spinal cord. A thin layer of cerebrospinal fluid is maintained between two of the meningeal layers. This clear fluid is produced by brain cells, and it provides extra protection and cushioning for the brain and spinal fluid. So here we have another example of a product produced from by cells. So this fluid might very well be produced, has something to do with the Golgi apparatus, I bet, if it's a complex assortment of molecules. Interactions of organ systems. Communication among organ systems is vital if they are to work together as a team. They must be able to respond to each other and change their responses as needed to keep the body in balance. Communication among organ systems is controlled mainly by the autonomic nervous system and the endocrine system. The autonomic nervous system is part of the nervous system that controls involuntary actions. For example, the autonomic nervous system controls heart rate, blood flow, and digestion. You don't need to tell your heart to beat faster or to consciously squeeze muscles to push food through the digestive system. The autonomic nervous system orchestrates all the signals needed to control them. It sends messages between parts of the nervous system and between the nervous system and other organ systems via chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. Interactions of organ systems, the endocrine system. The endocrine system is the system of glands that secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream. Once in the blood, endocrine hormones circulate to cells everywhere in the body. The endocrine system is under the control of the hypothalamus, a part of the brain. The hypothalamus secretes hormones that travel directly to cells of the pituitary gland, which is located beneath it. The pituitary gland is the master gland of the endocrine system. Most of its hormones either turn on or turn off other endocrine glands. For example, if the pituitary gland secretes thyroid stimulating hormone. The hormone travels through the circulation to the thyroid gland, which is stimulated to secrete thyroid hormone. Now, the stimulation could very well have to do with the hormone attaching to the surface of a cell, which initiates a chemical reaction. Thyroid hormone then travels to cells throughout the body where it increases their metabolism. Again, very well could be by attaching to a cell, changing a shape somewhere that causes it to amp up the process of cellular respiration. And here we go with cellular respiration. Organ systems interaction, cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is a good example of organ system interactions because it is a basic life process that occurs in all living cells. Recall that cellular respiration is the intracellular process that breaks down glucose with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and energy in the form of ATP molecules. The organ systems involved in cellular respiration. The glucose needed for cellular respiration comes from the digestive system via the cardiovascular system. The oxygen needed comes from the respiratory system via cardiovascular. The carbon dioxide produced leaves the body by the opposite route. In short, cellular respiration at minimum requires digestive, cardiovascular, and respiratory systems. Organ systems interaction, fight or flight response. The well-known fight or flight response is a good example of how the nervous and endocrine systems control other organ system responses. The fight or flight response begins when the nervous system perceives sudden danger, or we should say also, perceiving danger. But this is what how stress can affect our bodies, because of stress, being under stress is a perception of danger. Besides something really like life-threatening, say an imminent accident, something like that. Stress is a very strong influencer on this fight or flight response, and the same sorts of reactions occur. The brain sends a message to the endocrine system through the pituitary gland for the adrenal glands to secrete their hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones flood the circulation and affect other organ systems throughout the body, including the cardiovascular, urinary, sensory, and digestive systems. Specific responses include increased heart rate, bladder relaxation, tunnel vision, and a shunting of blood away from the digestive system and toward the muscles, brain, and other vital organs needed to fight or flee. So I want to encourage you to take a few minutes to look at this diagram here. And just, especially like maybe at the physical effects area here, you might have experienced these. I was recently talking to someone about this condition called tunnel vision and how she had experienced it when she was under stress of speaking in public. So you may have some personal experience with some of those particular effects, and it might be interesting for you to know that it's a result of this interplay of hormones that are causing your body to respond in these ways. Organ systems interaction, digestion. Digesting food requires a teamwork between the digestive system and several other organ systems, including the nervous, cardiovascular, and muscular systems. Food entering the digestive system causes nerve impulses to be sent to the brain. In response, the brain sends messages to the cardiovascular system to increase heart rate and dilate blood vessels in the digestive organs. Food passes through the organs of the digestive tract by rhythmic contractions of smooth muscles in the walls of the organs, so the muscular system is also needed for digestion. After food is digested, nutrients from the food are absorbed into the blood of the vessels lining the small intestines. When you eat a meal, the organs of the digestive system need more blood to perform their digestive functions, mostly absorption and transportation. Any remaining food waste is excreted through the large intestine. organ systems interaction playing softball. The voluntary nervous system is focused on observing and preparing to respond to the next play. Other systems being controlled by the autonomic nervous system playing softball, such as the muscular, skeletal, respiratory, and cardiovascular systems, are certainly doing their part. So, obviously muscular and skeletal, respiratory, yes, increasing heart rate, cardiovascular, increasing heart rate, and it works like a team of players that all have a common goal. Some players cover parts of the field or pitch or catch the ball, and so the human body is like a softball team in that regard. All the organ systems of the human body must work together as a team to keep the body alive and well.